information session is designed to update you on our progress and address your questions. We plan to address as many questions as possible during the question and answer period following the presentations. Updated information about Reclamation's implementation of the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law is always available at www.usbr.gov/BIL or the Inflation Reduction Act at www.usbr.gov/inflation-reduction-act. You may find the links in the chat or they are linked from Reclamation's homepage. Also, feel free to submit your questions, comments about Bipartisan Infrastructure Law to usbr.bil@usbr.gov or for the Inflation Reduction Act to usbr.ir.act@usbr.gov, and we will work to address your questions. We also have a growing list of opportunity to our nation's water infrastructure. It's now my pleasure to introduce our Deputy Commissioner, Roque Sanchez.
Hi, thank you, Mary. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Commissioner Tootin, our entire leadership team, and the almost 6,000 professionals who fulfill Reclamation's mission every day, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here to speak with you about how we're putting the resources from the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law to work in your communities and on projects with the greatest possible impact. We're committed to ensuring that these investments deliver meaningful results for you and the American people. Over the past 2 years, I've been privileged to go out and see some of the hundreds of BIL and IRA funded projects across the 17 Western states. It's great to see our partnerships in action in the field, making progress towards resilient water supplies and modernized water infrastructure for our families, farms, and communities. With nearly 600 BIL projects funded to date and nearly 250 projects under the IRA, we're very proud for the work we've done together so far and even more excited about what's still to come as we complete implementation of these generational investments together with you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. And with that, I will hand it off to Sean Torpey, who will get us started. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Commissioner Sanchez. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our 13th quarterly implementation update of the Inflation Reduction Act and Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. I'll quickly go through what we have on our agenda this morning. So our agenda today, and let me take a second. My name's Sean Torpey. I'm one of the co-leads. Melissa Smith is my other co-lead for the Inflation Reduction Act here at Bureau of Reclamation. So today we're going to go through and review our Inflation Reduction Act and Bipartisan Infrastructure Law funding opportunities. We'll look at funding opportunities that have multiple rounds, some implementing more than one authority. Other developments since our last quarterly update in June. We'll quickly go over a Buy America update and give you a little refresher. And then we have some reminders, program sunsets, expectations versus reality. We'll go through those at the end. So that's kind of what we have on tap for today. So our next slide, Inflation Reduction Act. So this is our IRA dashboard. We implemented this back in May for folks to be able to see the transparency of all the projects that we currently have, that we currently are working in the Inflation Reduction Act. So you can go to our website there. The address is up above and see what projects and where they're at and what we've been doing. So to date, we have about we do update this as regularly as we can. It's not real time, but it is updated weekly. We will have some updates based on some of the obligations that just happened in the last day or two. Those should be updated hopefully by the end of the week. But we've announced $2.6 billion to date. And as you can see in our dashboard, you can click through and see the projects and get more information. The tabs at the bottom where it says map, drought mitigation, domestic water supply, canal improvements, water savings, and a table. You can click on those and ultimately see what we've announced, obligated, and expended. So it gives you a good overview of what we've been up to. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Natalie Washington in our Native American Affairs Office to do the next slide. Thank you.
Good morning. Next slide, please. IRA Section 50231, Domestic Water Supply Funding, is designed to address ongoing needs of disadvantaged communities who still have no reliable access to drinking water. In the Reclamation 17 Western states, this includes all tribes and many smaller towns and cities. Progress continues on implementation of Section 50231 Domestic Water Supply projects. Reclamation has several different means of allocating funds to meet the goals of this section through WaterSmart funding opportunities to eligible U.S. territories, whole of government work with other agencies, and the Tribal Domestic Water Supply Funding announcement. Next slide, please. Through WaterSmart planning and design and drought resilience programs, Reclamation has announced $158 million in project selections to help communities prepare and respond to water reliability challenges due to drought or other water scarcity concerns. This will support 76 projects in 14 states. $82 million of this investment is funded through the Inflation Reduction Act. Other WaterSmart opportunities will be funded through IRA as long as funds remain available. Also, in May, Reclamation released a funding opportunity to provide $11 million in domestic water supply assistance to America Samoa, Guam, the Commonwealth of North Mariana Islands, and the U.S. Virgin Islands for projects in disadvantaged communities or households that do not have reliable access to potable water. Submissions for technical assistance close on August 25th. However, submissions for financial assistance are open until September 22nd. Next slide, please. In April, the department announced a new memorandum of understanding with the Indian Health Services to further develop safe drinking water and community sanitation infrastructure projects across Indian country. Through the MOU, our two agencies will collaborate to complete studies, planning, and design to be used in constructing domestic water infrastructure projects. This collaboration is aimed at accelerating completion of such facilities in tribal communities. The MOU follows President Biden's Executive Order 14112, which directs federal agencies to work together to remove barriers and streamline tribal access to resources. One project has been identified so far, and others are forthcoming. Next slide. The bulk of Section 50231 funding has been set aside for assistance to tribes. The Tribal Domestic Water Supply Program Phase 1 application period closed August 4th, 2024, and applications are currently being reviewed. 39 tribes applied for funding and 48 applications were received, including 42 for planning and design activities and 6 for construction activities. These application requests totaled $191 million in requests for funds. Phase 2 of this program will be announced in the 2027-2028 timeframe, with funding going solely towards construction. Receiving funding under Phase 1 is not a prerequisite for Phase 2 funding. However, priority will be given to those who received funding under Phase 1 and successfully completed the planning and design of their proposed projects. And I will turn it over to Darian.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it. Next slide. All right. So Section 50232 is the Canal Improvements Project of the Inflation Reduction Act. Reclamation received $25 million to study, design, and construct solar panels over canals in the West. So we have awarded funds to 4 different solar panel projects. The first one that was awarded was to the Gila River Indian Community out in Arizona. That was a $5.65 million project. They've actually completed installation of the panels, making it the first project constructed of its kind in the Western Hemisphere. The project is expected to be fully in operation in October after the final connections to electrical infrastructure is made. We can go to the next slide. Here on this next slide, we just have some pictures for folks to be able to see. So, so you can see some of the construction, the footers there on the left. them actually placing the panels and yeah, just the work that it took to put this in place. Next slide. Let's see, this last slide describes the other 3 projects that were selected. So San Luis and Delta Mendota Water Authority out in our California Great Basin region. They're going to deploy 3 different types of floating solar technology on the Delta Mendota Canal to kind of compare those various different types of technologies for viability and cost and the benefits of floating solar. The next project, North Unit Irrigation District out in Oregon in our Columbia Pacific Northwest region. They're also constructing floating solar panels in the main Canal of the Deschutes project. And then finally, the last project, Weber Basin Water Conservancy District out in Utah in our Upper Colorado Basin region. They are covering existing canals with canal spanning technologies. And they're going to have a 5-year demonstration, collect various different data. And really for all of these projects, these 3 as well as the Gila River Indian community, they're all looking to compare costs, look at the viability, look at and better understand the benefits as it relates to evaporation, reduced algae growth, a variety of different kind of benefits as we've seen. And these are the 4 projects that we have that allow us to use up that $25 million. So thank you. And I will turn it over now to Fernando.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Fernando Castro is here from the Commissioner's Office in Washington, D.C. Can we go to the next slide, please? We're going to give you a little bit of an update on how we're spending and implementing the 50233 funding that's otherwise known as the $4 billion section of the IRA. And as we've discussed before, the focus of that section is to mitigate drought impacts in reclamation states, with priority given to the Colorado River Basin and other basins experiencing comparable levels of drought. You see here a pie chart. This pie chart moves, although it doesn't move much. But as of now, this is our estimated breakout of the spend plan. We're destinating about 46% to Colorado River long-term drought solutions, about 36% for short-term savings that were critical to stabilize our system, and 12% to other basins, and 6% to the Salton Sea. Can we go to the next slide, please? Here we see the Upper Colorado River Basin funding opportunity status. We had bucket 1, that was the short-term system conservation that helped us shore up elevations in Powell. And we had 2 additions, 2 single-year additions, one in 2023, one in 2024. And you can see that the total implemented as of today is 174 projects for those 2 additions for about $45.9 million that are bringing 104,000 acre-feet of water to the system. And this one has been implemented in coordination with the Upper Colorado River Commission, and it's been a great partnership thus far. The Bucket 2 program, it says in development because we have one of those sub-Bucket 2 programs in development still. That's the long-term water conservation program. And we're going to probably aim to have a funding opportunity for you all to look at very soon in the coming weeks. We're saying this fall. For ecosystem restoration projects, I noticed this slide deck. It's not the most up-to-date, and we'll make sure we'll get you the up-to-date slide deck. But that one was released already in June. And we're very excited to be accepting applications through October 14. There was a webinar last Friday where we presented more on the details of this funding opportunity. And here I'm going to share a link after I finish speaking so that you have access to that webinar, but also access to an FAQ document that we're continuously updating, where you can see answers to some of the questions that you may have, and also you'll find an email that you can write to if you have additional questions, and we'll continue populating that FAQ for the benefit of everyone interested. Can we go to the next slide, please? So bucket one, agreements in the lower basin, those as discussed before, system conservation agreements that are meant to shore up elevations through 2026, protect the system now. And we have announced 24 system conservation agreements totaling over 1.58 million acre feet of system water savings for Lake Mead. The investment is $670.2 million. And there are more announcements to come very, very soon. So stay tuned. On bucket two, we have announced initial selections of projects that total about 700 million. We did not name those projects because we still had to go through negotiations with those initially selected. And we're gearing up to starting our announcements very, very soon as well. Stay tuned for the coming weeks. And we're also working on additional rounds of selections, and we'll have announcements for you all on that point very soon as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? Lastly, but importantly, because it was actually our first implementation here of the IRA in 2022, is the Salton Sea Agreement. Why was this important to us? Salton Sea are contributing, the Salton Sea low lake levels are contributing to water and air quality impacts. And we have a commitment to support the state of California to make sure that we address those impacts. And partly, and in a great proportion, these impacts are exacerbated by reducing inflows into the sea. And when we increase system conservation out of some districts that are in the area, less inflow makes it to the sea, exacerbating this problem. So we destined $250 million total for the Salton Sea. We've implemented thus far $70 million with the state of California for a project that aims to create up to 7,000 acres of aquatic habitat for wildlife and cover exposed lake bed. And we've also implemented $2 million with the Torres Martinez tribe to make sure that they can develop the capacity that they need to support project implementation. And we're also working with the state of California and our partners here to continue making announcements on this very, very soon. Can we go to the next slide, please? I'll pass it to Mr. Sean Torpey.
Thanks, Fernando. All right, the second piece to the Section 50233 drought mitigation is other basins funding. So that's to mitigate the impacts of drought in the reclamation states, with priority obviously given to the Colorado River Basin, but other basins experiencing comparable levels of long-term drought. So you can see our map here shows the different categories of drought when we were looking at what other basins we would look at. So you can see, obviously, the red is significant to the Colorado River Basin, and we have some other pieces up near the Columbia River Basin there. Can we go to the next slide, please? So announced projects. So since we our last session's announcement of 141 million, we've increased that by 33.5 million. So what we've done since June, we've announced the Eastern Snake Plain Aquifer telemetry for 2 million, the emergency drought relief funding for the Rosa Irrigation District, 3.4 million, the Toppenish Aquifer recharge for 6 million, the North Branch Canal Lining Project for 1.6 million, Washington State Conservation Agreements for 5 million, the Middle Rio Grande Environmental Water Program for 5 million, Lower Yellowstone Intake Bypass project for 8 million, and the Lower Rio Grande Valley Water Resources Conservation was also announced for 2.5 million to make up that 33.5 million. We look to continue to announce other basins projects in the next. It's kind of on a rolling basis as we get them. So we hope to get other basins all announced here in the next few months. I will now turn it over to Kelly Tittenser in our Native American Affairs Office for the next slide. Kelly, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you. Next slide, please. Pleased to talk a little bit about Inflation Reduction Act, Section 80004, entitled Emergency Drought Relief for Tribes. As you can see from the slide, Congress provided $12.5 million to be applied towards drought relief for tribes. Of course, the funding expires by September 30th, 2026. One of the unique provisions of this legislation is calling for impact for tribes that have been impacted by the operation of a reclamation water project, including, of course, but not limited to, addressing drinking water shortages and mitigating the loss of tribal trust resources. And of course, none of these funds are subject to cost-sharing requirements. Next slide, please. Last December, we released a NOFO. The NOFO closed, excuse me, on the 11th of April. We were pleased to receive 14 proposals from 10 tribes, amounting to $4.7 million in funding requests. Those requests are still under review at this time. We expect to be able to make funding announcements within the next 3 to 4 weeks. Of course, this leaves additional funding still on the table, still available, and we're working with leadership to make those funds available for tribes. We expect that will be announced this fall. And I think that's all I have for now. Let's see. I misspoke. We had 10 applications received with a total of $5.25 million in proposals. With that, I'll turn it over to Matt Maucieri.
Thank you, Kelly, and good morning, everybody. I'm Matt Maucieri in Reclamation's Operations Group in the Commissioner's Office in DC, and I co-lead implementation of our bipartisan infrastructure law together with Beth Hughes Brown. So the first several slides, those were IRA, and the latter part of this PowerPoint is dedicated to the BIL, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And then, of course, both teams will be available at the tail end of this PowerPoint. We're about 10 slides out to answer any questions. As we move through the next 10 slides, Beth Hughes Brown and I will sort of toggle back and forth, and one or two more of our subject matter experts will come on. Thanks, by the way, to the subject matter experts for getting us through those slides and for keeping Beth and I straight on all the programs under both of these bills. With that, just start us off on BIL. Just a couple of quick bullets there for context. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law has funded about 587 projects to date. Every single Western state in Reclamation's jurisdiction has several BIL funded projects. We have allocated about 4.29 of our 8.3 billion at the project level, so a little more than half. And we're about just past the halfway point of the appropriation cycle for the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which was authorized for fiscal years 2022 through 2026. Next slide, please. So this pie chart, you guys have seen this to date. We keep using it though, just because it's constantly evolving, and we want to show where's the money going by program area. If you followed the BIL, you know it got about 12 different program areas with some provisions, some conditions that sort of made it larger than 12. You know, allocate this to WaterSmart, but also allocate this much to multi-benefit projects within WaterSmart. So we use a number that's a little furry, between 12 and 16 programs. So this is where it's going. As you can see, the biggest slice of pie there are the WaterSmart grants. And the next biggest is our aging infrastructure. And this is the percentage of projects, numbers of projects not the dollar value. We've also done a dollar value version of this one, but this gives you a general overview. And next, for the next slide, I'm going to hand off to my co-lead, Beth Hughes Brown, who can walk us through the next one.
Hi there. So a lot of people ask us about questions about obligations. Obligations is when you get the money legally out the door, right? You sign a contract or you sign a financial assistance agreement, and it's going out the door. We are at $2.1 billion out the door for obligations so far of that 8.3 billion that Matt described. But here's the big news, even bigger news than 2.1 billion, another 320 million we're expecting to obligate by the end of fiscal 24. For those of you who have ever been in finance or grants or financial assistance or anything along those lines, or know what it is, or on the receiving end of it, it's very labor intensive. So our hats are off to those people in those offices who are doing that work. It's a lot of work. And this is a lot of money to be going out the door by the end of fiscal 24, an estimated 320 million more. Perhaps you can have a rough order of magnitude vision of what it is we're talking about there, but it's a heck of a lot of work. And so we're very, very proud of our people. Next slide, and we're going back to, I believe it's back to Matt. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Beth. So yes, you've seen this graphic before as well. It keeps getting updated also. Just like the pie chart you saw a few slides ago, it's the same information. It's just depicted, obviously geographically, gives you an idea of physically where the money is going, where the projects are. And this is on our website as well. Fun fact, the dark blue dots in there that depict storage projects, you can see in the legend, those are in Arizona, California, Colorado, Montana, Utah, and Wyoming. Reason I mention it, or sorry, not Wyoming, Washington state. As I'll emphasize on another slide, under the BIL, we are doing things and reaching areas with the BIL that Reclamation hasn't previously done before. Some of those projects, those storage projects, are small storage projects between 200 and 30,000 acre feet. And while we have some of those size reservoirs in our portfolio, we haven't funded a program like this before for non-federally owned small storage projects. So I point out that fun fact just to say that BIL is getting us into areas that we haven't done yet, and it's largely because of the partnerships we have with districts, tribes, and NGOs like those of you on the call that we're able to do that, because we have the program, we have the resources, and we have the local partners to make it happen. Since the very beginning, Reclamation has, we're a federal agency, but Reclamation has been all about the partnership with locals. That's since the writing of the 1902 Act that founded the Bureau of Reclamation. So BIL is just a continuation of that, and we think it's working very well. Next slide, please. Okay, so this slide and the one after it are just a quick rundown on what's open right now, what funding opportunities are open. You recognize probably some of this verbiage. All of these funding opportunities are linked from our website, which in turn links to grants.gov, the official platform for applying for these federal financial assistance programs. You can see the open and closing dates, how much money is available, and just gives you a sense of sort of the diversity. A lot of these, as you can see, are water smart, but if we go to the next slide, I'll point something else out. Yeah, most of these are water smart, but if note the first and last bullets on this page in particular, large scale water recycling, a new program for us that was authorized and funded under the BIL, and then small storage, also a new program authorized and funded by the BIL. I'm flagging those two bullets, top and bottom, because those are two programs that have been very popular, have gotten lots of applications, but that have a sunset built into the BIL. They sunset on 5 years from enactment of the BIL, which is November 15th, 2026. We'll talk more on that in a couple of slides, but I just wanted to flag those two, large scale and small storage, for when we move through to the next slide. One more thing to say on this slide, sorry, patience. One more thing to say on this slide. Note bullet 2, aging infrastructure. We are just about done finalizing our 4th set of application projects under this program. And the difference it's going to make is huge. Some of these aging infrastructure projects, we also call them XM, extraordinary maintenance. Some of these projects, like the ones we announced this past May of 2024, are so numerous or so individually big that they dwarf other XM or aging infrastructure requests that are in our regular budget request. For example, in the May 2024 announcement of XM projects, we had $49.9 million to replace 6 miles of leaking pipe on the Mini-Wachoni water line in South Dakota. We had $25 million for Altus Dam in Oklahoma. It's the type of work that we do year in and year out, but the allocations that we're able to make because of the BIL's aging infrastructure are bigger than you might see in an annual budget request. So it's given us resources to do things that we know have needed doing, but that we might not be able to have done all at once via the regular budget request in a relatively short period. So just wanted to do some color commentary on that. And thanks, patience, for backing up. We can go to the next slide now. So as mentioned, we're funding a lot of new things that we haven't funded before, small storage, for example, and we're reaching communities that we haven't reached before. For example, we've funded projects in Texas for years, but if you look at our map, right now we've got 6 BIL projects down in the southernmost edge of Texas in Cameron County and Hidalgo counties. Normally you wouldn't see that much activity in one year. So we're bringing the benefits of the reclamation program further than it's gone before. These are just some general examples here that say that in different ways. Something to note on the second to last bullet, we're implementing in the language of the BIL, the statutory language. It said, make sure you fund things like nature-based infrastructure or multi-benefit projects. And we've used this slide before, this bullet before. We're doing that, and some of the funding opportunities, if you read them closely, you'll see that there's a priority or a carve-out for those types of projects consistent with the statutory language. For the next slide, I'm going to hand off to Chris Felton, who works in our Management Support Office, or MSO, and he's going to go over the Buy America issue associated with BIL. Thanks, and take it away, Chris.
All right, thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Felton. I'm the manager of the Financial Assistance Policy Branch here in Reclamation. And I'm here to talk to you about the Build America, Buy America Act, which was included in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. So this act requires that all iron, steel, manufactured products, and construction materials used in infrastructure projects funded by federal financial assistance be produced in the United States, unless the project is subject to an approved waiver. So the act, which is also codified at 2 CFR Part 184, permits waivers for the requirement for non-availability, unreasonable costs, and public interest. Those waiver types then have subcategories that you can see here on the slide, some of which are general applicability, project-specific waivers, and tribal consultation. So to date, Reclamation has had 6 BABA waivers approved, all of which have expiration dates, so they do not go on in perpetuity. And those can be found via the link that you see at the bottom of the slide. Additionally, we do have a general applicability product non-availability waiver for AMI water meters posted for public comment through September 28th on the Department of Interior's BABA website. And we're also still working on a Colorado River general applicability waiver. So that's what we have here for an BABA update and refresher, and I'm going to toss things back over to Matt to highlight some additional items for you all to be aware of. Thanks.
Thanks, Chris. And we can head to the next slide. So as I said a couple slides ago, we have some programs that are sunsetting, small storage and large-scale recycling. Some of the Buy America waivers also have expirations. BIL and IRA funding is being combined. And I want to flag that, for the small storage program, we got $100 million, and we are right now, the last application cycle is underway now. It's combining 2 fiscal years so that we can make it under the wire of getting that last set of money allocated before the expiration date. For large scale recycling, we got $450 million, and we can fund, no more than 25%. projects that by definition are very big, large scale recycling projects over $500 million in total project cost. So I'm flagging those two expirations not to lobby anyone. We're not lobbying Congress. We're letting everybody know, though, since these programs have a constituency to them, we want to make sure everyone's aware that they, as currently written under current language that's in law right now, they do expire in in November 15th, 2026. So home stretch, we can move to the next slide before I hand back to Deputy Commissioner Sanchez. We've used this information before, but it's still important, we feel like, because it kind of keeps your orientation between programs and projects and lets you know that as we transition to questions and answers, there's other means besides this session for us to answer any questions that you have. We really do a live human being named Travis Yance answers the email box for the BIL. He's still answering questions about every week. A couple of emails come in and he crafts and answers and sends them back. Sometimes we plagiarize those Q&As and put them in our FAQs, frequently asked questions, if it was a useful question that we think other audiences might want to know. So please use those resources for both BIL and IRA. We do the same thing with IRA. And thank you again for being on this call with all of our SMEs, Natalie Washington, Kelly Tittenser, Darian Mayhorn, all of the folks that are on with this, Fernando Castro Alvarez. Really appreciate your help on implementing these laws, but also being on the call right now to help us get through any Q&As. And thank all of you for riding with us as we implement these two important acts of Congress. With that, I will hand back to Deputy Commissioner Sanchez, and then we'll be available for Q&As.
Great. Thank you, Matt. So as we move on to Q&A, first I want to thank all of our staff that are working on BIL and IRA programs. This is a historic amount of investment, but it's also a historic amount of work for them. And I just want to thank them and recognize that effort. So I think if we go to the next slide here real quick, I will point out that we've got a few links here that will point you to all information on the programs that we've discussed today. This photo here actually is one of my favorite projects that I've visited recently, the Lewis and Clark Regional Water System, where we cut the ribbon on a new water storage tank in Madison, North Dakota. I think this is a really good example when we talk about generational investment, because this is the project and the system as a whole that's probably going to be completed about a decade sooner than we otherwise would have been, thanks to the investment of the BIL. So while the opportunity here is huge, I would like to leave you with a sense of urgency for BIL in particular. As Matt mentioned, the BIL money rolls out over a 5-year period, and we're just about to enter year 4 of 5. So we're more than halfway through BIL. So I'd really encourage folks to, with potential projects, to make hay while the sun is shining, and please reach out to our staff with any questions about the funding opportunities as they are released. So with that, I'm going to turn back to Mary, who's going to help facilitate some Q&A with our remaining time. Mary, thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. As you can see, we are extremely proud of what we've been able to accomplish so far through Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and Inflation Reduction Act. Together, we are prioritizing reliability and resilience to drought in the West. At this time, we are ready to address your questions. So please, you can either use the raise your hand icon up at the top of the screen, or you can put your question in the chat if you'd like. We'd prefer for you to raise your hand and come on screen there and ask the question, and we can do our best to address it. So let's see if we have any questions right now. You can also always submit your questions via email. Patients just dropped the addresses in the chat to ask questions later if you don't have a chance today. But let's see, do we have any questions? I'm going back and forth between the chat and the people list. So if anybody sees a raised hand that I didn't see, let me know. We did have a question in the chat during the presentation about whether these slides would be posted, and the answer is yes. The entire recording of the entire presentation will be posted on both, I think, the BIL and the IRA websites, which we've provided links to. You just have to scroll down the pages. They're posted further down You do have to refresh your screen if you've been in there recently, because sometimes those don't update unless you refresh the screen. So I am not seeing any questions. Is anybody else seeing any hands raised or questions?
No.
Okay, I think maybe we've done a good job to cover everything today. At least I'd like to think so. We'll give you just one more second in case anybody comes up with anything. But again, you can always submit them via email. So thank you so much for joining us today. Let's see, those are the websites again and the email addresses just in case you need. But again, on behalf of the Bureau of Reclamation, thank you for attending today's information session. We are dedicated to transparently implementing bipartisan infrastructure law and Inflation Reduction Act. You can submit your questions later on if you have any at usbr.bil@usbr.gov or usbr.ir.act@usbr.gov. Thank you and have a nice day.